Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Shop Adventure, my weekly excursion where I leave the homestead Athletic Geek HQ in search of a bounty of comics, graphic novels, collectibles, action figures, and all things in between. First things first, going to talk about what stood out from last week's pull list, and the book of the week for me was Dead Man Logan number 3. Just really with the way they're doing the story, everything kind of coming full circle with Logan fighting Mysterio and the Avengers kind of stepping in, and that tying into the original Old Man Logan graphic novel. So it was really well written, and I've been singing the praises of this book for months now, so it's just a really great issue that's continuing a really good story. I thought that both the Flash and the Annual, because they both really tied into one another, they were well done. Just very like tug on your heartstrings kind of story, especially when Iris finds out about Wally, leaving us again, or leaving the story again, I guess I should say. Just kind of a really deeply emotional story. You really felt her pain. I thought that they did a really good job with that. And Detective Comics was also very good. Peter Tomasi is just doing an absolutely exceptional job on this book as we continue to march down to 1,000, or march on to 1,000 issues of Detective Comics. So yeah, that's what stood out from last week, and I'll see you when I get back home, back to the homestead with this week's bounty. Hey everyone, I am back here at the homestead, here at Athletic Geek HQ, and I've got quite an interesting bounty this week, so let's get right to it. First things first, on the pull list, we're going to start off with Prodigy number 3 by Mark Millar. This is a really good book, and granted, I am just a kind of pretty big Mark Millar fan, but it's just about this gentleman who's really smart. He's a prodigy, and just his knowledge, and he just kind of gets put in situations. It's been a really interesting read so far, and I've liked pretty much every Mark Millar miniseries coming out of Image I've ever read, and this is no different. So if you can still get 1 and 2, I advise giving it a look. And yeah, Prodigy number 3. From there we go to the world of Marvel with Avengers number 14. They're preluding to this big crossover War of the Realms story, which unfortunately I'm not going to be able to follow too closely. Just simply because it's spanning over a bunch of books that I don't normally buy. And while I get that business technique and I get why that's done in the comic book industry, if I gotta buy more than two other books that I'm currently not reading in order to follow a story, it's just not worth it to me. It's not a knock on how good the story is, it's just a matter of, I have a budget, and unfortunately I can't buy 4 new different comic books just to follow one story. I'll just get a trade paperback later. But nonetheless, I'm sure, at least in the Avengers and Thor part of it, both being written by Jason Aaron here, I'm sure it'll be well written, and eventually I'll check it out. But yeah, right now I'm just going to enjoy both books until it gets to that part to where I can barely keep up anymore. So Avengers number 14. And from there we have, we go to Daredevil number 1 by Chip Zdarsky. I'm a Daredevil fan, and Charles Soule run was very up and down, and there was a miniseries that I fortunately failed to pick up in between all of this, so hopefully I won't be too behind the curve when I check Daredevil out. But we'll see how good of a book this is. We'll see how well it's done. I kind of had the love-hate relationship with Charles Soule's run, unlike the Mark Waid run, which I adored. But, I'm a Daredevil fan. Unless it's completely awful, I'm going to keep picking it up. So, Daredevil number 1. From there, we go to Deadpool number 5. And it looks as if it's going to be like a Valentine's Day issue. I might be wrong, but I think just the cover is just awesome. Deadpool's just always been a fun book. Good writing, it's not just all wackiness. There is some good storytelling here. But Scotty Young especially, since he's taken over the book, it's just always been kind of like, for me, this is like the book where I don't know if taking a break is the right phrase to use, but I just, with all the drama and all the other, high pressure of some other books and the stories that are going on, Deadpool is a fun break that tells a good story, and, it's not written for, in a condescending way, or written in a way that you feel like the writer's writing down to you, or being more simplistic or something like that. It's just a fun book, and at the end of the day, comics are supposed to be fun. And if you can be fun and well written, that's just, like the cherry on top of the sundae. So, always get excited when Deadpool comes in, because I know I'm going to have at least one book that I find to be really, really fun. So, Deadpool number 9. And from there, we go to Uncanny XMen number 11, an $8 comic book, because I love that. But I bought it, so, touche Marvel, you got me. It's gotten better. If you've watched previous adventures, you would know that I've not always had the best things to say about this book, but in the last few issues, it's staved off getting cut. This is going to be the one that decides whether or not it becomes a permanent fixture on my pull list. It's the end of the arc. It started off slow, and I'm just going to flat out say, in my opinion, poor. But it's gotten better enough to where I'm going to see it through to the end, and hopefully it's good. I hope it's good, because I love the X-Men. I don't want to be without my X-Men fix on my pull list. So, Uncanny X-Men number 11 at $8 whole. It is double size, so I'm not just going to make it seem like I'm unfairly picking on that price. We now go into the world of DC with Batman number 64. The Price of Justice. It's this is going to be a crossover with The Flash, and while I did kind of complain about that, and I can understand from the other perspective, maybe I'm a little more easygoing with a Batman and The Flash crossover, because I'm currently reading both Batman and The Flash. I know there might be Bat fans that aren't reading The Flash, and vice versa, who may not like the idea of having to pick up a book they're not reading to follow a story. I understand it. This isn't any better. It's just the fact that I'm currently reading both books is what makes it more appealing to me than what the War of the Realms is going to do at Marvel. But I'm looking forward to it, because, one of all, you got Williamson writing Batman for this issue, and, maybe give Tom King a break to recharge his batteries on Batman. I don't know if he'll be returning or not. As you know about my love-hate relationship with Tom King and his Batman titles, but I'm looking forward to this. Batman, Flash are two of my all-time favorites, and it'll be nice just to see them working just together. I've seen them and read about them together in the Justice League, but we'll see how, both personalities of Barry and Bruce kind of play off of each other. So, Batman number 64. From there, we go to The Green Lantern number 4. Grant Morrison, he's had a real controversial run, to say the least, ever since he took over Green Lantern, and a lot of it's because the Green Lantern's plural book was canceled in favor of it, and I must admit I'm not a huge fan of that creative decision, but so far I've enjoyed it. One thing about Morrison is, as trippy as his books are, and believe me, they're trippy as fuck, some weird shit happens in them. He has a lot of respect for the history of the characters, and that's not always a good thing. You can't just have respect for the history of the character and that make your story good. It's going to piss some people off, I'm sure, and this is no offense if you like it, but Dan Slott has a tremendous amount of respect for the history of Spider-Man, and in return, I respect Dan Slott for that. But just personally, I'm not a huge fan of his Spider-Man run, so it takes more than respect. Tangent out of the way, I've just really liked how he's been able to pull from these old Silver Age villains in the Green Lantern world and use them in kind of an updated fashion. I always think that that's really, really cool when a writer's able to pull from the innocence of old comics and yet kind of make them seem newer, to where it still has that, they still have their charm of what made them good back in the Silver Age, but they've been updated to where you don't feel like you're reading something that would insult your intelligence. I feel like Morrison's done a good job of that so far in the Green Lantern book. It's still not my favorite Green Lantern title, that I've ever read. It's nowhere near the Green Lanterns title that, you saw me talk about earlier. And the Johns title from, back in the early part of the decade, but still a good book so far. And I'm looking forward to reading it. The Green Lantern, number 4. And to round out the pull list portion of the bounty this week, we got Justice League number 17 by Scott Snyder. A new story arc is beginning. It says The Good, the Bad, and the Dragons, and we see Lex and Martian Manhunter on the cover. I don't know what's going to happen, but especially after the last story arc, I've always kind of liked Martian Manhunter. He's never been my favorite, but I've enjoyed him as a character. And ever since then, they've done some good work on his character, and I'm looking forward to see him becoming a bigger part of the Justice League in this iteration. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to reading this book and wondering what's going to happen. So, Justice League number 17. And we'll segue into, more talk of Martian Manhunter and the Justice League for that matter. Got some cool little mini statues this week as well in the Justice League, the animated series line, starting with Martian Manhunter. I think this is my first, other than like they used to have at Walmart, these little mini figures. I have a Martian Manhunter, one of those. They were like $1 and they were a mystery. They're really cool and they're really neat to have. I wish they still made them and still had those available. But nonetheless, this is my first Martian Manhunter action figure, but besides that one, action figure, statuette, anything related to this character. So, pretty cool. I really enjoyed this version of him from the animated series. I thought it was really, really cool, and especially, how they did his origin story in the first 3-part edition of Justice League. So, yeah, it's cool, and happy to have that as part of my collection. And also, to round everything out, another one of my favorites, also from the Justice League line, is The Flash. I really love this iteration of The Flash as well. It was voiced by Michael Rosenbaum, and it was always really cool at that time. Michael Rosenbaum was voicing The Flash on Justice League, and he was simultaneously playing Lex Luthor on Smallville. So he got to be one of the biggest heroes and one of the biggest villains in the DC universe simultaneously. This was the Wally West version of The Flash, where he's really fun-loving and goofy, and it was kind of cool just seeing... he was really funny. I love The Flash from the Justice League, and Rosenbaum did a tremendous job, and I'm happy to have something like this as part of my collection. It's pretty cool, and it's a must-have for any fan of the Justice League or The Flash. So, looking forward to getting that set up. But that is pretty much it for me this week. Let me know what you picked up at your local comic shop in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it. If you want to see other videos, please subscribe. And check out what else I have to offer, not just from the world of comics, but from the world of pro wrestling, games, and all things geek culture. For more content, please go visit facebook.com/athleticgeek89. Every Thursday is my collection comic of the week, and that is exclusive to my Facebook page, so check that out. But I'm out. Y'all be cool. Later.